Assalamu alaikum, greetings. My name is Shwa and I am sitting with someone very important and special for the Pakistani community, Pakistani American community in Greater Boston area. So we will find out who he is and what does he do. And we will be speaking in English and in Urdu, sometimes a mix, and we will try to have a separate segment with him as well. So I welcome Imran Bhai, Imran Sahab. Please introduce yourself,
Sure.
who you are and what do you do.
Thank you, Shwa. So my name is Imran Qidwai. I was born in Peshawar, raised in Peshawar. I did all my education through electrical engineering through Peshawar University. I've been in the US for almost 40 years, actually coming in July, and in the Boston area for the last 38 years. As I said, my base education bachelor was in electrical engineering, and then I did a postgraduate diploma in digital electronics from Holland. Went back to Pakistan, worked there, then came to the US to change course and go into software.
Wow.
So I did my master's in software engineering, if you will, from Michigan, and moved here to Boston. So effectively now I consider myself a software engineer. I worked in several companies, some large companies, building enterprise software, and then moved into my own companies and had my own startups and helped other startups. Last year I left Intel, and now I'm working in the area of climate action. And the simple headline is, I'm trying to save the planet for my grandkids.
Very nice. Beautiful.
So Alhamdulillah, we've been married. I have a lovely wife. She is here. She works in the clinical affairs area in the medical field. I have 2 children, mashallah, and 1 granddaughter, mashallah.
Bless you. Wow. This is very, I think we should all digest this and give prayers for Imran Sahab that may you continue to be the way you are and enjoying your family and work. And I'm sure there are challenges, but seems like you are able to navigate very well. And that's why you are sitting here.
Alhamdulillah.
Should I ask the difficult question first or the easy question first, or maybe
Anything?
all are easy for you? if I psych him up for this is a difficult question, maybe I will make it difficult. But can you name anything that is the same or similar that you appreciate in both the cultures from Pakistan and the US? What do you think? Anything you want to say, please?
Interesting question. So clearly there are vast cultural differences rooted in the history, rooted in how these countries came about. Having spent more than half my life in the US, I would still have to think a little bit about it, but many years ago there was this thing about us versus them,
Yes.
especially in the early 2000s. And the one thing that occurred to me at that time, that at the end of the day, we're all human.
Yes.
So the humanity is the part which is common. Every day people wake up, parents wake up, they go to work, they try to provide the best for their kids, make sure their kids get educated, and be successful in life. In a nutshell, I think that's the most common thing between us and people in Pakistan or anywhere else in the world.
Okay. So there isn't, I mean, as a human being, we're talking about the human beings have similar lives, similar pain and gain, and we are on the same level basically. So not a big issue with that. See, that's how he navigates through all the challenges. Because this was a challenging question. Because people are having challenges with this today and had before. But this approach is the way, I guess, to move through and not make a big fuss and drama about it. Thank you so much for this reply. Anything that you think that surprised or is still a surprise for you, comparing in these two cultures?
Yeah, and
I mean, you said you have been here, mashallah, for 40 years almost.
Yeah. And yeah, this is something that I still talk about, and I was talking about this with somebody just very recently. And again, it may be rooted partly in our culture, in our religion, and from Pakistan, and then in the Constitution of the U.S. But when I was growing up, and I think it's an English saying, maybe British, not American, that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. But what I find in the US, and as I said, increasingly and repeatedly, is that we have to go through the whole cycle, whether it's drugs, it's alcohol, it's smoking, various kind of things, rather than people stopping and preventing, say, the worst outcomes. They have to go through this whole cycle and then go back and try to fix it.
Agreed, 100%. I have a lot to say about it, but not now, later.
So, while on the one hand we have quote unquote freedoms in this country, and I would be the first to say that we enjoy the freedoms, and despite all the ups and downs of the past 20 years, we still have had a good life in this country. But the flip side, and some people push it too far in terms of what the freedom means. In my view, freedom and rights also come with responsibilities. And I think that's where sometimes I feel that in this society, in this culture, we're lacking a little bit.
Okay.
Balancing responsibilities with the rights and freedoms.
Excellent. So, do you think the next generation that is here are able to comprehend or understand what you just said? Do you think there will be any
I'm afraid not, because the next generation is very, very different, being raised in this area of this era, if you will, of social media.
No, we are talking about the generation which is immigrant, children
Oh,
of
you mean,
immigrants.
I see.
And no, that's fine. You can differentiate that because it will be different.
Yeah.
Children of immigrants, right, born, brought up here, versus the generation who's been here for many generations, because everybody's an immigrant here.
Sure.
So we can, if you can break that down, that is good. But if you want to just lump it up as a younger generation, however you want to take on that.
No, having raised two adult children in this society, and from the beginning we thought it was going to be hard, but it was harder than we had imagined. And alhamdulillah, both our children are, despite parents, and we can find some shortcomings as well, but alhamdulillah, they're both great kids, and our pride. But they are, if you will, in many ways American kids, right? So while we have tried to inculcate some of the values and the cultural values and things that we believe are important in them,
right,
but we also see the kind of quote unquote American streak in them, having been born here, being raised, going to school, college, and the environment. So, and then what I had started to say earlier about social media, they are also, and everybody is being influenced by that, which is sometimes there's a lot of misinformation and various things. So I think the jury is out what's going to happen with the next generation. But we and the parents gotta keep working at it.
You said it was not that easy. It was harder to bring them up. Something that is more conspicuous and you can share. You don't have to share, but if you can, then please do so.
I think the hardest thing is kind of I implied. I mean, we chose to send our kids to the public school system here, rather than any religious school. Many people send some their kids to Islamic school, some send to Catholic schools or other private schools. We chose to send them to the public schools, and that's where, from say the first grade, they are exposed to all kind of things. So again, I mean, I kind of touched upon it, but things like drugs and alcohol and so on. I mean, trying to keep our kids away from them and the pitfalls. Alhamdulillah, I think so far so good. Alhamdulillah, they've been successful. I mean, I keep coming across people personally who in the past few years have shared that say their adult children have died due to an overdose. And I cannot fathom how hard it is. I can only guess. But it's just something going on in the society.
True. All right, thank you so much for that as well.
No, people have been very kind in attributing Open to or the founding of Open to me, but there were other people involved.
Okay.
Very briefly, I think I mentioned that I did my engineering education in Pakistan. Then I taught there at the Peshawar University for a year. Then I went to Holland on a scholarship from the Philips Foundation. When I went back to Pakistan, I worked at Philips and then at a British computer company called ICL. So big multinationals. Came to the US after my master's. I was at Digital, which was the second largest computer company in the world. When I left, they had 126,000 people. Then I was at Lotus IBM, Lotus, which got acquired by IBM. When I left them, it was again a huge company. And when I went to work for a small company, I was the VP of engineering of a company with a total of 25 people. I suddenly realized, this is the end of 97, I suddenly realized that the buck stopped here. And when I was at large companies, when you had challenges, and for several years when I was in engineering management at Lotus, I was the top technology or engineering development guy in my business unit. So it wasn't that I had to kind of report on a technical level to higher ups all the time. But if there was any issue, a challenge, there was a peer system, right? So I could pick up a phone and call Bob and say, Bob, when you guys had this issue in the Microsoft operating system, what did you guys do? So, okay, we did this, or there's a patch for this. So I come to a point, and literally there was a quote unquote Russian engineer came to me with some challenging problem, and we did work through it. And I said, you know what? If we had a networking organization, and by that time we knew several people socially, I knew either through the masjid or just the Desi network, who were either founders of startups, leaders in startups, or executives in tech companies. So I went to about 7 people, and my recollection is that I knew all 7 of them, but all 7, each of them did not know each other. So I said, this is early 98, I said, what do you think about us starting a networking organization? And people kind of got excited and interested. So we assembled 7 of them in Imran Khan, who's a friend in Natick. He volunteered, and we gathered in his house on a Sunday, and then we talked about it, what it meant, and so on and so forth. I had spent a lot of time in the 90s at the MIT Enterprise Forum, so I was very familiar with what could happen, but we were considering a close, tightly knit network where we could help each other. And we thought, yeah, there is something there. So we decided to continue meeting, let's say first or second Sunday of the month. And we rotated in different people's houses. We would have lunches. And in 2 or 3 months, we realized that there was a there. And Tahir was the one, Tahir Chaudhry, who came up with the name, Organization of Pakistani Entrepreneurs of North America.
Okay, that's what it is represented.
Yeah.
Open. It's very nice, actually, in a way. It's open,
Right.
minded, open to new ideas, right? So open is, again, can you say it again?
Organization of Pakistani Entrepreneurs of North America. But today, it's more of a brand because we have expanded globally. Imagine 7 people sitting in somebody's living room eating desi lunch and thinking big and saying, hey, let's just have an organization for all of North America. At that time, there was a big ambition. And we did not realize that it would actually become a global organization. But again, very quickly, so the 7 of us, we continued. Iftikhar Chaudhry, who's another friend of ours, his son actually came up with the logo. And then we kept going, and we added some more technical leaders, startup founders, about 12 to 14. In a year, 2 years, we actually had other people in the community who they started knocking on the door and said, okay, what's going on in this organization? We want in as well. So after about a year, couple of years, we said, okay, let's incorporate. So we created a nonprofit, we registered, and we had the first big quote unquote open meeting at the Burlington Marriott. If my memory serves me right, this was September of maybe 2000. And what happened was about 70 or more people showed up, maybe more than 100. People flew in from LA, people flew in from San Francisco, people drove,
nice.
Rented a bus and came from New York.
So it means it was well, the message went out about your.
And we asked them, we said, look, I mean, you guys, there's such a big community in the Silicon Valley, so why here? They said, you know what, we have several organizations, but we do not have a professional network, entrepreneurial organization for Pakistan.
That's excellent.
And both New York and Silicon Valley, San Francisco, they said, hey, we want to create chapters. So they were pretty much the second and third. There was always this joke about who was second, who was third, but they were neck and neck. And they were the second, third chapter. Then the fourth was, I think, DC, then maybe Chicago, Houston, Atlanta. And now, obviously, we have chapters in Pakistan, the Middle East, London, Canada, and pretty much a global organization.
Very nice, very nice. So, this is for anybody, or is it for Pakistani Americans?
No, at this stage, when we started out, we had said anybody with a Pakistani heritage or who's interested in promoting this.
Okay.
And we said two things, promoting leadership and entrepreneurship.
Okay.
But by now, if I go to the biggest event, which is hosted by the Silicon Valley called Open Forum in California, the last time I went, out of 1,000 people, and now it's being held at the Santa Clara Convention Center. It has outgrown all the facilities they use. Out of the 1,000 people, I would say about 30% are non-Pakistani,
Okay, excellent. That's very good.
So I see Chinese Americans, I see
some
other
diversity in
Americans.
there,
Exactly.
so we can add always.
And so we have tried to do the same thing here as well.
Okay.
As I said, Open is, while I gave you the explanation, right now it's a brand, just like Hoover and Kleenex and everything, and we have gone global.
That's very good, very good. So how did it affect during the COVID time? Because COVID has affected every household and every business. So what about this organization? Were you able to do your conferences or meetings online you did, or did you just stop? What did
Sure, no, actually that was in some ways a boon. While in-person meetings for a lot of people are important, Zoom and other technologies became critical. And one thing that was initially started at the global level by the last global president, Mozam Chaudhry, and then copied by other chapters as well, is a monthly gup-shup session on Zoom. So rather than an informal meeting, and they would invite a key speaker, have that person come in, and so with global, people in Pakistan and wherever could come in,
so
especially the charter members.
Okay, so in fact maybe more people could participate from all over.
Exactly.
Yeah, that has been, we can say, if we want to look on the positive side a little bit, that okay, not everything is bad, that we were able to connect through Zoom or online forums, platforms, I would say, and that's how I have been doing. So, and we are lucky today that we are in person sitting here. Otherwise, this would have been on Skype or a Zoom interview. So, thank you. Still, we don't have too many people here. We have a couple of people sitting here. They're quietly sitting. They're very nice. We'll give them some candy at the end of the interview. But yeah, it's not too crowded. So we are still keeping that in mind, that we don't want too many people. I think that's what it's going to be like that. Anyways, okay. Anything else? Yeah, you were saying. Do you want to continue?
No, I think the only other thing I would say is in the formation of Open in the early years, the other 7 founders, they were all critical. Imran Khan, when one of the things we did was to make sure that we had the right chemistry between the people. We had a spirit of giving rather than taking. So, in fact, when we were looking for the first president, nobody wanted to be the first president.
Oh, wow. So
I believe we had to.
All of them also.
We had to draw, have a drawing to decide who is going to be responsible.
That's nice.
So, Imran Khan, our friend here, was the first president of Open, and he was instrumental in working with our corporate attorney Arthur Anderson to create the. There was a gentleman by the name, not the accounting company that used to exist.
Okay.
So
that's what I thought. Good you clarified it.
That was a big joke. Anytime he would introduce himself. So Imran Khan and Arthur Anderson created the framework, the legal documentation for our chapter, and they made sure that it had the capacity to have other chapters as well. Since then, the bylaws have been revised,
Okay.
but I think they were instrumental in getting it off the ground.
Okay, good. So seems like we are almost done with the main जो था इसका 75th पाकिस्तान की एनिवर्सरी का. But one more last question regarding that. So any message of from you, many message for 75th anniversary of Pakistan, that is on 14th August 2022. First in English and then we'll ask you in Urdu.
Shoot, for the people of Pakistan.
Yes. What any message, anything that you want to say on this 75-year-old Pakistan?
Sure. No, I mean, as I said earlier, I have spent more than half my life here.
Okay.
In some ways, I consider myself American, but I am proud to be a Pakistani American, as they say, Dil Pakistan. So we, in fact, with some friends from my school, including some Bengali friends, we have in the pandemic arena or era. We have a monthly call, and we are around the world, and we're considering a trip to Pakistan, inshallah, next year.
Oh, that's excellent. Very nice.
So
A
my
reunion,
message,
huh?
yes,
Reunion.
my message to the people in Pakistan is that is to have unity, for the parents to make sure their children get educated, whether it's boys or girls. Without going into detail, I mean, I tell my kids about how I got to where I got with my father's education. My grandfather on my father's side was not very well educated, but my father's elder brother gave up his education when my dada died to make sure that my father gets educated, and he got his master's in physics from Lucknow University in 1945. Joined the med department. He was actually, when he retired, he was the acting head of med department in Pakistan, but he made sure that we all got educated.
Yes.
And no matter what, I think education is key. And so that's one thing. And I certainly wish all the best to Pakistan, and wish another great 75 years, and hope that we get out of some of the turmoil, have more unity, more progress. Pakistan has a lot of potential. Many of us who live here and elsewhere in the world, we came from the same soil.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, we have been successful, and sometimes I just wish and hope that our country, Pakistan, could be more successful than it has been so far.
Okay, excellent. अब हम थोड़ा सा कुछ अपनी ज़ुबान में भी बात करते हैं, जब इनको टेस्ट करते हैं. इनको उर्दू अभी आती है, इतने साल रहे हैं, आधी ज़िंदगी इन्होंने इधर गुजारी है, तो अब देखते हैं कि इनको उर्दू कितनी आती है, क्या ये कैसे बोलते हैं. अब आप लोग जज करें, क्योंकि ये ज्यादा मजे की बात होगी.
आप चाहें तो पश्तो भी बोल सकती हैं.
अच्छा,
जमा पख्तो पोएगी.
मुझे तो नहीं आती, मुझे शौक बहुत है. मेरे दोस्त हम बाहर जा रहे हैं इंटरव्यू के बाद.